All right, everyone, we are joined by 3 special guests this time. We are joined by Danielle Fishel, Ryder Strong, and Will Friedle. You guys may know them from the very popular show Boy Meets World, but now they are coming together for a podcast, Pod Meets World, which we are very excited about to take us all down memory lane. So thanks for joining us, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
This is one of our most fun things to do, and also when Rhea and I are like, 5 people on Zoom can be kind of tough.
Yeah. Can we conquer it?
Can we do it? Will we all talk over each other
Probably.
the entire time? Probably. Yeah. So everyone bear with us, because that's just kind of how
it goes.
So
yeah, we've run into that with the podcast ourselves, with figuring out which one of us is going to speak when, and you kind of develop like a little bit of a sign languagey type thing where you point to each other, like, you're going to take this part, you're going to do this. So we'll figure it out as we go along.
And I think my favorite thing is like when me and Fran, because we've been doing this so long together, we do start to talk at the same time a lot of times. And then she's like, no, you go. No, you go. And then it's just like, all right, one of you go, because who cares who goes first? But we are so excited to have you guys on. You guys are doing this podcast, which we're seeing is really popular nowadays. A lot of people are taking us down, like I said, memory lane of a lot of very popular shows that we were all huge fans of. And even people are going back and watching these shows like Boy Meets World because they're on streaming services now. So people who may have never seen them or are way younger than any of us are now watching them. So it's so exciting. And we want to know where the idea for this came about. Who was most excited to do this podcast?
We were all excited. The idea actually came from Lindsay Ridgway, who was our second little sister on the show.
Right.
So one of the on-running jokes that we have is it was actually Ryder Strong's idea, but we never give him credit. So every week somebody else gets credit. So thank you, Lindsay Ridgway, for coming up with the idea for Pod Meets World. It was very, very special of her to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this was something I came up with. You know, we started doing conventions together like 2017, 2018, and really just connecting with the fans. And we were coming home from a convention, and I like emailed everybody. I was like, guys, I've never seen Boy Meets World. Could we just do a podcast where we watch the show? And then for a number of reasons, we didn't get it together. It didn't happen. And in the meantime, the podcast rewatch has become its own genre. And so, yeah, by the time we finally got our act together and went to the fine people at iHeart, it's already kind of a well-established groove. I think we're one of the oldest, though. Like, our show's going back. I don't know how many rewatch shows are going back to like the early 90s. So we're definitely going deep.
Yeah, I agree. I think it definitely is one of the longest shows because it started in Boy Meets World came out in 1993, right?
Yeah, 93.
Yeah. So,
and had we just listened to Bill Daniels when he came up with this idea, we would have had one of the first ones ever. But we didn't listen to him, so we should have.
No, I think it's such a good idea, and I think that everybody is very interested in just how much you guys remember from being on set and behind the scenes and all of those stories, because you guys seem to obviously still be close in some way. But was it always that way, or did you lose touch and come back together, or did you stay in touch for this many years?
I think the answer is both of those. We've always been close. And we've always had that kind of relationship where you're in each other's lives forever. All friendships you have when you're kids kind of carry on with you for the rest of your life, even if it's just in memory. But unlike those friendships with people you met in elementary school, they probably won't be named in your obituary, where like Ryder and Will, their names, it's going to be like Danielle Fishel died today and is survived by Ryder Strong.
Wow.
You know?
It is true, but at least you gave yourself top billing. I'm an also dead. Every time I'm on a plane, I'm always like, also killed Bill Friedle. Like, it won't be the same thing. So at least you gave yourself top billing, which is pretty great.
That is funny. We always joke around about that stuff here too, just because we work with so many different personalities. Where we're like, if we all died in a plane crash, whose name would they use first, and who would just be like, and others?
Right.
So now I want to know. Whose name would they use? You guys have discussed it. Whose name would they use?
I think we both get named.
We would probably be named.
Yeah, Hopefully.
Not last names,
No.
but it would just be like Rhea and Fran.
Or just host of Chicks in the Office. They wouldn't even name us.
Right.
They wouldn't name us.
Female podcast
Two
hosts.
popular hosts.
Yes.
Yeah,
died
two
today.
female
podcast hosts
Yeah,
would
that's what
actually
we got.
probably be what it would be.
You
Wow.
guys would be like actors from the 90s.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
Boys meet girl actors. Like, no, that's
It would
not
be our
right at all.
character names. Yeah.
How
Ryder with a Y. Yep, of course. Yep.
So Ryder, you said you have never watched Boy Meets World, which is absolutely incredible to me. How familiar with the show, Danielle, were you? Like, did you watch it when it was on, or were you in the same camp of you didn't watch it at all?
Me first. I watched it when it was on. Like, I watched it once when it was on every Friday night. It was kind of my thing because I had no friends or no dates. So it was like, I'm going to hang out with some Taco Bell and watch my show.
You loved yourself.
I did. Well, no one else was. But then kind of after that, you watch it once. I didn't watch it in repeats or anything like that, but I have kind of a creepy memory. So especially with TV, if I see something once, it sticks in my head. So as we're watching the episodes again, they're coming back. Like the dialogue I was saying is coming back. I can kind of remember what the next lines are, but it's very strange because it's something I haven't seen in 25 years. And yet it's like, oh, I remember this. Whereas Ryder and Danielle sometimes are like, I was in this episode. What's happening?
No clue. Yeah, we just did an episode that I did not remember a single word of or any of the plot line. And
it was your episode. It was your
all an
episode.
episode about me, and I had no recollection of it. But yeah, I realized when we watched the first 5 or 6, I did remember them very well because they were new. We were just starting the show and figuring everything out. And so I was surprised how many memories I had of behind the scenes. But now that we're 10 episodes in, no clue. I think from here on out, I am going to be shocked constantly.
Watching it back now, does it almost
Can
feel...
I cut you off for a second?
Yeah.
Because I want to hear Danielle's answer
Oh,
to
yes.
that.
Sorry.
Sorry, no.
No.
I also, at least for the first several seasons, watched them when they were airing on Friday nights because I was 12 and TGIF was kind of made for me and my family. I was just like everyone else watching it. So I watched at least the first few seasons. And then I think once I got into high school and I was going to the football games on Friday nights, I don't think I ever make sure I go back and watch that. So I think I had seen at least the first few seasons, but then I have no memory of any of the older episodes at all whatsoever. So like Ryder said, some things are coming back to me from the very early episodes, and then every now and then there's something that I'm like, I have no recollection of this. I have no clue what's going to happen.
Right.
Can anybody remember, just curiously, when did, and it started with, I think the first one was TiVo. When did it come out where you could record your show and watch it back? Does anybody remember what year that was? TiVo came out?
After us, but yeah.
It was
99.
you couldn't in the third, fourth seasons, you couldn't just record it like you would normally nowadays. That wasn't a thing. Okay.
VHS.
You could record it on a could
Yeah.
record it on a VHS tape.
What year did
Okay.
the show end?
2000.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think TiVo came out after that.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not
Okay.
positive.
Watching it back now, do you almost feel like you're watching someone other than yourself?
That's a good question. Yeah, I do kind of feel like that. I mean, I remember being that age and I remember what it felt like to be me at that age. But when I watch it, I have a hard time, especially the episodes I don't remember. I have a hard time being like, are we sure that's me? Because I have no memory of it. But yeah, that's a good question. I hadn't really thought about it that way, but maybe.
For
definitely
me,
feel like
you go first, Ryder.
I feel like it's a completely different person, and I'm kind of discovering who I was. And I'm like, wow, I was a weird kid, and the way I moved my body, I'm like, what is going on? But yeah, I am. It's very, very jarring. Doesn't feel like me. I mean, I was we talked about. I was the height I am now at the age of 13, so. I look very tall on board. The first season, I'm towering over Ben, and I'm so much taller than Lee Norris, who plays Minkus. And I'm like, oh yeah, I remember feeling kind of tall, and that has not happened since. So, very different.
Yeah, the thing that's strange is it's you rehearse all week long, but the actual shoot takes 4 hours, 5 hours. So watching the show, it's more reminding me of the stuff that happened the week we were doing that episode, as opposed to the episode itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm remembering, remember when we rehearsed this scene forever, or remember what the table read was like that week. That's kind of what it's bringing back for me. But the actual show goes by so fast that it's just kind of like, oh, that's right. I remember how we set this joke up, but I don't necessarily remember actually shooting it. So there's a disconnect to watching what we're doing. But it's fun to watch yourself during puberty. Nothing better than watching all your awkward years thrown up on camera. It's pretty great.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Will, how old were you at the start of Boy Meets World?
I was like a month away from my 17th birthday.
Okay,
so I was 16.
And so Danielle and Ryder, you guys were a bit younger, around 13, right?
I was 12. Ryder was around 13.
Yeah, so you guys, were you being homeschooled at the time? Were there teachers on set? Like, how did that work out? Because you're going to school on fake life.
For us, it all seems like school is the show.
Yeah, but then you're also doing school outside of that, right?
Yeah, we would have to do by law we'd have to do 3 hours of school a day. We would end up usually doing 4 or 5 hours a day, and we had 2 different studio teachers on set with us, working with all of us like at different times. Like one person would be working on French with me, and then another teacher would be doing chemistry with somebody else. But we were always in school when we weren't on set, basically. So yeah, we talked about it. Like one of the first episodes of our podcast, we had to sort of describe a week in the life, because we realized like people don't know, like that our day-to-day experience was a craft service table, a trailer where we had school, and then like very little time actually on the set. So the part that everyone remembers is a fragment of our day-to-day life. But yeah, we were all in school back in our hometowns, getting our work ahead of time. And then, the show would take a week off. Every 2 or 3 weeks, we would get a week off, and we would all go back to school for that week.
To real school?
Yeah.
That must have been really strange.
Because I lived in Connecticut, so I was like, I couldn't go back every week, so I just got dumber that week and we were off.
You ate Taco Bell every day instead of just Fridays.
I ballooned up nicely during the later seasons of the show, you'll notice. Yes.
It's such a different phenomenon now for us, I feel like, because you immediately assume when you see child actors on shows now that they have no connection to school or like that environment or high school. You're like, oh God, these kids never even sniffed to high school. They don't know what that's like at all. But then I guess you guys really were sort of living both lives, where you were on a massively successful television show, and then you would spend time in a real school. Was that ever really tough? I mean, bullies stink now. I'd imagine they stunk then too.
Right. What was like the reception like of you guys just, these actors just prance into school whenever they want?
I did have that experience when I was in junior high. Like when I started Boy Meets World, I was in 6th grade, and I had also just moved from Orange County to Calabasas. And so I was also in a brand new school with people that I never went to elementary school with, or like didn't have any relation to at all. And so that first year, that 6th grade year, I don't know if I would call it bullied, but I was definitely made fun of. I was called Princess. I'm like, oh, look, Princess is here. Princess decided to join us for school. And I would try to explain like, oh, I'm still doing school just on set. Like I would try to explain how it worked. And, I even got picked on by teachers. I had a PE teacher who like really had it out for me. He was so mad that I didn't have to be in his PE class. And so that was, but then by the time I went to high school, all those kids I had been in junior high school with, I was there with them for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And so by the time I moved into 9th grade and it was like the 4th season of Boy Meets World, they were like, yeah, you, whatever. And so like school was really important to me. And to clarify that, I do not mean the educational aspect at all. I didn't care about that, but I did really like boys, and I really liked football games, and I really liked all the social elements of school.
Same.
So I was super into that. Like I wanted to know what so-and-so was wearing and who broke up with who and who was I going to write a note to and what was the guy I was interested in doing. And so that's why I went back to school for sure.
You liked the gossip element of school, which me as well. I enjoyed the same thing. I did not like the education part of that. But I think it's really funny you bring up the teacher point, because I would imagine the teachers are almost more jealous than the kids, because they're like, I got to teach these damn kids. Like, this is what I'm doing. And this girl's on TV.
Well, and not only that, but like Ryder said, the teachers actually had to put in a lot of work for us to be able to do what we were doing.
Right.
Because they had to have their curriculum weeks in advance and for like a block. So it'd be like, hi, do you have next month's curriculum for 3 weeks? I need all those paperworks and all those sheets that you plan on handing out. And so it was more work for the school and it was more work for the teachers. And as if teachers didn't need, as if they weren't like, they're not paid well, they have too many things on their plate, then here come these actors. So I can only imagine, I understand why they hated us.
Ryder,
I only did the first 6 months in school, like the first season I was in school, and then I graduated from high school, and no be smart any longer, acting forever will be I having. So I was like, school done now, acting awesome. Yeah. It was, I didn't have to deal with what they had to deal with. But you said something that's funny, because when we said we were in school for 3 hours a day, you're like, lucky. It seems that way, but when it's just you and a teacher for 3 hours, you can't be passing notes or talking to somebody else. I mean, it's like you are being educated for 3 hours.
Yeah,
there's a
very
reason
true.
that like Ryder went to Columbia, and Danielle's got degree. I mean, everybody who decided to be smart had degrees from all over the place. I was just the only one who was like, nah, this lasts forever. Amazing.
You have your book collection behind you.
I've never read a single one of these. I have no idea what's in these at all. They just look pretty.
They're actually storage. If you open them up, you can put things in.
Yeah, it's a secret. It's a secret door.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
secret
exactly.
door. Ryder, what was your experience like in real school?
I went to a very, very tiny school in the middle of the woods up in my hometown. I mean, I graduated in a class of 12, so it was a very bizarre experience and very extreme. Like, I would go from LA I had to walk like a mile to my school, and if you were the first student to get there, you'd have to start the fire to heat up the like shack that we were in.
What?
Yeah.
Well, how have we never heard this before, that you had to stoke the fire if you were there first? Were you on a steamship? What the hell's happening?
Yeah, man, we were in the woods.
This is Ryder actually went to school in 1875.
Seriously?
Yeah, and I was a complete outcast. I had friends.
I was going to say, the outcast of 12 people. How is that possible?
You were like really the outcast.
None of them had TVs.
Here's something that at one point I went on Regis and Regis Philbin, and it wasn't Kelly.
Regis and Kathy. Yeah, we all did that round.
I did that one time, and they asked me about school, and I made a joke. I was like, "Oh, I go to this little hippie school out," and then like the principal was upset. She was like, "Ryder, you were on television. You called us like a hippie school," and I was like, "I'm so sorry." And like all the kids were all like offended, like, and
I'm so
like,
sorry, Professor Moonbeam. I didn't win it at all.
I don't know. And then like in LA,
you were starting fires at the school. That's a hippie school.
That's not hippie.
It's also not really an insult.
No, I didn't think so. But I just remember like at one point, like one of my teachers, like an English teacher who was 24 in retrospect, like he made some big speech about like materialism, what was going on to the class, and like made a joke about like, why would anybody ever need like 2 VCRs? And everyone was laughing and looking at me, and I was like, what's happening? It turned out like one of my friends who had been to my house had seen that I had 2 VCRs in my house. So the whole class was making fun of me, including the teacher. And I was like,
wow.
What do I do for a living? I work in film and television.
Wow.
You're
bourgeois.
so insecure. I felt so bad.
I can't
like
believe you had 2 VCRs.
Yeah, seriously. La-di-da, Professor.
You're really letting it out right now.
Like a dirty hippie kid.
God.
So like I didn't fit in either place. Basically, I always felt a little in between and out.
That is
So they were jealous of you. We could word it like that.
I don't know. No, they all thought it was really uncool to be on TV. Like
That's
it was
what they
really
say.
lame and mainstream. It was like I was made fun of for being fake and Hollywood and not real and down to earth.
I didn't realize I was going to want to go back and give child you like a giant hug after this.
Yes,
Have you
exactly.
seen Boy Meets World? I was just emanating sadness. That's all I do.
But we didn't know that's what it was from.
Yeah.
My God, it's wow. I'm so sad now.
Yeah, you really just let it all out there, and I think that
Princess, it was the same thing.
Yeah, the fact that
She's
you
not
said
stoking fires when she's getting to the school.
but she was like, yeah, I was called Princess, but like, the boys liked me, so.
Wow.
But
I had that too. No, I had, especially when I was younger in like middle school, there was a good year and a half where there was an old skit on Saturday Night Live, which was John Lovitz. And every time I opened my mouth in class, somebody would go, "I'm sorry, I was just acting." And they would do that every time I opened my mouth, which just made me not want to talk in class. I was like, I'll just keep my mouth shut. Thank you. So yeah, I think when you're a kid, anything different is bad. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just, you're different, so you're bad. That's just how it is.
Yeah. Now, I'm loving the dynamic between the three of you, which I think is obviously why the podcast works so well. And you've had some amazing guests already. You guys, you've been putting out episodes for a while now, and you've had some amazing guests. How have you been picking and choosing who you want on, or is it open invite? If you had anything to do with Boy Meets World, you're welcome on the podcast.
So far, it's mostly been open invite.
Yeah.
We're just sort of like who we're still in touch with. I mean, obviously, like we had to like track down Lee Norris because like we had lost touch with him since Girl Meets World. There were a couple that became very obvious once the show started. We're like, we have to see Lee. And then Bill Daniels, of course, was like one of the first calls we made. But yeah, no, I mean, now we're just kind of leaving it open and tracking down writers and people who want to come on or that we're still in touch with that reach out to us, and we'll see how it develops.
It's funny. We like Ryder said, we have this open door policy, but we also are trying to recognize that we have 7 seasons of Boy Meets World to go through. So we have 158 episodes of Boy Meets World to talk about. And eventually we are going to run out of people who were involved in the show. There's only so many people. Like, sure, we may have had a crew of 150. And if we found every single person from that crew, but let's be honest, some of the crew members are not going to necessarily make for great interviews that people want to listen to, or they won't want to come on. And so we're trying to find the balance between open invitation and also let's bring in other people who also had to do with who were popular in the 90s and who either watched the show or guest starred on the show or who had a show of their own on at the same time, or who were just maybe celebrity super fans. Yeah. Because we love having guests, and people so far, our audience has really enjoyed hearing about the experiences of being famous in the 90s, being a child in the 90s, or being a child actor just in general. So if you had anything to do with the show, we want you to come on. And then also we're always looking for people who were outside of that we can bring on too.
Yeah, I do think that there's always a fun conversation when you can have someone who is a massive fan of the show who watched it in a certain lens gets to talk to you guys who have a totally different viewpoint on what's happening. And that conversation is always very funny because the fans always like, what do you didn't like that one? That was my favorite one, or something crazy was happening, things like that. So it is really great. I know I saw, it's funny because I just call him Mr. Feeney, even though it is Bill Daniels. It's just like,
so do we.
He's just the cutest man. And I just watched, the little video of him saying, "I'm on Pod Meets World. Everyone go listen." And I'm like crying. I'm like, he's
who
so
instructed
adorable.
him to say that, right? Because he's probably like, what's a podcast? Like, it's just crazy. Everything's like, it's new, but it's not, right? Like, podcasts have been around for so long, but then there's some people who are just finding out about them.
Yeah, it's a little like Will. Anytime, I love hearing Will talk about anything that happens on TikTok. Will say, "Have you heard there is a viral thing on TikTok?" And it sounds like you got the oldest person on the earth to talk
Is that right? That's what I said to Bill. I called him. I was like, "Hey, Bill, you want to come on an old-timey radio show?" He's like, "Yeah, I'd love to." I was like, "Great." So that's, how you got to talk. No, Bill is one of those guys. We've now done conventions with him. We've done this stuff where you think he's kind of maybe not paying attention or he's wandering a little bit. And then he'll come out with the perfect line that gets the entire audience to roar with laughter. He is the consummate professional. and consummate entertainer, and that will never go away. So all of a sudden he will just throw in one line that brings the house down, and then he's quiet for 2 minutes, and then he throws out another line that brings the house down. It's amazing. Truly is. They just celebrated their 70th wedding anniversary.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
That's
so cute.
It is that is beautiful.
Bringing up TikTok and social media, I always ask this question to people who had a popular TV show while social media was not what it was today. If social media was around when you guys were on TV, what do you think it would have been like for you? Do you think you would have gotten into trouble? Do you guys think you, like, because it can get you into trouble, but I feel like...
Yeah.
Which one of you would have been the viral TikTok sensation?
Right. And who would have gotten into trouble?
Danielle would have been the viral TikTok sensation,
Obviously,
but Danielle also would have gotten into trouble. Probably.
Yeah.
Both of those.
I think I probably would have avoided it. I don't think I would have engaged.
No.
Ryder would have been with the hippie kids at school being like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, phones.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're just, why don't you want to live real life and be in the
so mainstream.
Yeah, he just finished his soap making class and be like, I'm not doing this anymore,
I'm not
man.
selling out with the
That's
TikToks.
right. Exactly, with the TikToks.
Will, even in the 90s, would have been too old for it. He'd been like, oh, I missed that. I don't know how Will would have been old in the 90s. He was.
Let's talk about MASH. That's what I would have been saying. That, yeah, exactly.
Talking about MASH. I for sure would have had no boundaries. That, like, my phone would have been with me. It would have gone with me everywhere. I'd be doing stories and lives and, like, probably Lord only knows what I would be getting into. And it would have been a nightmare. Whenever people ask this, how do you think you guys all, grew up to not really get into too much trouble? And I think, only because we didn't have social media. Because I for sure would have been, thank God, I didn't have social media when I was a teenager.
And I've been 3 years without it now, and it's been the greatest 3 years of my life. So nobody should have social media. It just is. It's a thing that all of a sudden is necessary when it's not at all. So it's everyone should get away from it.
It helps people. It helps people like us who use it for our jobs. Yeah, I don't think we'd have a job.
Now
Truly.
I am an old, and I use it for my job, and I also use it for, the occasional, like, ooh, I'm really excited about this personal moment, and I'd like for you guys to know about it. Now that I understand clear boundaries, because I'm old, like, that's something that really takes time for people to learn. I don't think teenagers understand real boundaries between the public and the private. I don't think you have that. Maybe some people do. I did not. Right. But now I love it, because I do feel like I have a good balance. And when I don't know what I'm going to post, I just don't post anything. And when I feel like I have something to post, I post it. So I have a really healthy relationship with it now.
Yeah, I always say I'm relieved that like Instagram and all that started picking up when I was like early in high school. But as a kid, like middle school and junior high or whatever, social media wasn't like Facebook existed, but like it wasn't like all these apps now. And so like I still was able to play outside and make up games with my friends, where it's like now people are getting phones and having social media apps at like 7 years old. Like that's just, it's like part of it's like so inappropriate, but then I think it reaches an age where I think it does help. I went into a toy store to buy a gift for my boyfriend's niece, and there was a game, like a board game that was like, be a TikTok star, YouTube star, and it had little cell phones and little cameras and all these things. I took a picture of it and was like, this can't be what games are like. We can't be buying these for 7-year-olds. Because when I grew up, I was like, I want to be an actress. And now when people grow up, they're like, I want to be a TikTok star. It's such a different world. Yeah. Was the paparazzi like bad when you guys were doing the show?
Paparazzi didn't even exist.
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
No, it was really the early aughts when that went crazy. Like late 90s, early aughts. I mean, that's like, you watch like the Britney Spears documentary. I was like, I am so glad I missed that. That was post Boy Meets World, that kind of insane, like everywhere you go, cameras, people on the street. And I got a little bit of it, but mostly that period I was going to college and like keeping my head down. But I remember when I moved back to Los Angeles in 2005, like, that's when people, like, cars would pull up and people would jump out with cameras. Like, that was when everybody was
Did that happen to you, really?
Yeah. And I remember I would always just be like, hi, do you want to talk to me? And they'd just be like, yeah, man, come on. And I'd be like, well, you could just ask to take my picture, And then I just learned to avoid going out in LA. Like, you just don't go to certain places. Yeah. But but yeah, there was that weird period. I mean, now I feel like it's finally died down, but like
but if we're honest, we weren't celebrities. Like Boy Meets World was popular to its fan base when it was on, but we were never on the cover of TV. We weren't even involved with TV Guide until like season 7. We were just kind of that show that kept going. We were never that hugely popular. You're on the cover of everything now. I mean, Ryder did the teen magazines and stuff, but other than that, it was
I don't know.
we
man.
weren't
I don't
those
think-
big
I don't think- I don't
celebrities,
think-
you know.
I don't know if Danielle would agree. The amount of Topanga recognition just by
Now,
I mean,
but not back in the not by season 4 or 5. We weren't getting recognized everywhere. I wasn't. Maybe you guys were. I certainly
we're
wasn't.
going out.
Oh, I was there. I was during the show. I never had
Right,
that
well,
problem. I just,
people did not knock on our doors and then freak out when we opened the door to see us. But I did get recognized when I was out and about. Like I tell a funny story that when I was dating a guy named Corbin in the mid '90s, and it was right around the time of like a Corey and Topanga breakup. And my boyfriend and I were at Universal City Walk, and we were walking and holding hands. And there's a guy in front of me who kept turning around and glaring at me. And I'd look at him and like kind of smile, and he'd turn around and he kept walking, and then he'd turn around again and glare at me. And all of a sudden he just stopped and spun around and he looked at me and he goes, "What are you doing?" And I was like, I'm so, I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, "I just saw you. You just came back for Corey. Who is this?" And he
my God.
He was furious with
People
me.
are crazy.
And
wow.
I said, "Oh, no, that's on the TV show. Like this is," and he like he settled down and walked away, but he didn't really fully understand what I was talking about. And that was happening pretty often back then.
Wow.
That is
I never
insane.
had that.
That is just crazy. But
Yeah.
people get so attached. They really do. And I think that it did cross over because I didn't watch Boy Meets World until, I mean, I was
late. It was later.
years later. Like I was 3 years old when the show ended. So it was when it was on like ABC Family. And it was
Yeah.
Boy Meets World and Full House, and I became obsessed
That's
with
when
those
it seemed
shows.
to, that's when I saw it really start to take off. Is when it
Yeah.
was doing the repeats. That's when it really
But
started.
to me, I thought it was on live because it was all, I've never seen it before,
Yeah.
so I thought I was watching like a live show.
It's true, and I think like streaming services and being able to watch it all back, you watch on YouTube. Like I've said this story before, but when I left for college, I bought the full DVD box set of Boy Meets World and took it with me to my dorm room because it was my comfort show. And whenever I was like having a tough time or like, you know, friends, it's like freshman year of college, you're trying to adjust. I'd like sit in my bed and put in my laptop the DVD and watch tons of episodes, and I had all the DVDs. And so it's just evolved in so many ways for people to watch it, from back then to watching on ABC Family to buying the DVDs to now watching on Disney Plus, which I'm guessing is maybe where you guys are all rewatching them. So it's just evolved in such a cool way.
I think it's timeless. I think it's a show that holds up still to this day, that people will still watch back and think it's funny, and there's
Most of
heartwarming
it.
moments.
The clothing, not so much.
Right, but it's
Yeah.
also nostalgic, and also the trends make
the
their
90s
make their
trends
way
are
back,
back.
around. Like I'm wearing,
Everybody's dressing like Topanga again. Everybody.
I walked in with an outfit last night, and Fran was like, "You look like you came straight out of the '90s." So
I told her she looked like Kelly Kapowski.
Yeah,
Like
it all comes back around. But we're getting the wrap up signal, by the way. So I know this has been so much fun. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. Everyone can listen to Pod Meets World. What days does it come out?
Mondays and Thursdays.
Mondays and Thursdays. So double episodes, 2 episodes a week. We love that.
We try most of the time.
Yeah, it's same.
Where exactly are you guys in your rewatch?
We just finished watching episode 10, but as far as where they are in the episode airing, I think we're at like 7. We're like 3 weeks ahead.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah.
So we've got a bank of
You got a
We've
long
got
way to go.
14 years left. 14 years. Followed then quickly by, we're also announcing our second podcast, which is Ryder is not listening to this podcast. So we're going to do a re-listen of the first podcast, which is going to be a lot of fun.
Commenting on it.
That is
We
very
listen to the
funny.
rewatch.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. Everyone can listen to Pod Meets World wherever you listen to podcasts, and we really appreciate you hopping on Zoom with us. This was great.
Thank you guys.
Thank you all so much.
Yes, it was so
Thank
nice
you.
meeting all of you. Thank you.
You too.